At the Global Liver Institute, we believe it all starts with a patient. So what happens when a patient, a liver patient no less, one of the 500 million people living with conditions that often go undiagnosed, untreated, or misdiagnosed, mistreated, and stigmatized, brings the challenges of liver patients front and center? And what happens when a patient then leads a discussion with world experts in policy, research, clinical care, and wellness on ways to overcome these challenges? Let's find out today on GLI Live. Hello and welcome. My name is Donna Cryer. I'm the CEO of the Global Liver Institute, and I have the honor of being your host for this episode of GLI Live. This is a continuing part of our series spotlighting community organizations, specifically members of the GLI Liver Action Network, which I'm excited to say not only cover 42 states in the United States, but into Canada. And so today we have with us the head of the Fatty Liver Alliance, which is located in Canada, Michael Betel, and a member of his medical advisory committee, Dr. Supriya Joshi. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I've always been so impressed with your work and so excited and honored that you would come together with us as part of the Liver Action Network. And I'm so excited to share all the wonderful things that you're doing. So, but maybe we'll take a step back and Michael, share how you got involved in this and a little bit about your background so people know why I'm so excited to share you with them.
Okay, I'd love to. I like talking about myself. It's good. If you go all the way back to 1993, I actually worked in the pharma industry and we sold interferon for hepatitis B, then non-A, non-B, then hepatitis C. And so that went on for really decades. And then the last couple of years, I became more aware of fatty liver disease, and the incidence is so high and it's everywhere and all of us are at risk. And so I started to look at myself and my family and my friends, and as it turns out, even in my own family, we have type 2 diabetes, we have obesity issues, other health issues. And if it's okay, I'll give you an example of how close to home this is. So, and the story is on fattyliver.ca on our website. My daughter, Allison, weighed about 255 pounds. She went once to Six Flags Magic Mountain on a roller coaster ride, and she couldn't do up the seatbelt. And she was incredibly crushed. And I think it impacted her on a lot of levels. And she decided that she really needed to do something about it. So she sought medical attention. And for her, the best solution was the gastric bypass. And she's lost like half her body weight. She looks great. More importantly, she feels great about herself. And health-wise, issues like pre-diabetes and other things like that have gone. And so it gives me hope knowing that other people, and everybody's different, but other people can take their own solution and own journey to take care of themselves.
That is a wonderful story, a very empowering and positive story. And it's exciting that you get to sort of scale that throughout Canada and now throughout the world through the Liver Action Network. Dr. Joshi, I'm always so excited and so grateful to meet a hepatologist. I know how long and hard you had to study through internal medicine and gastroenterology to get to hepatology. Thank you for being that and doing that for us. But tell us about yourself and how you work with the Alliance.
Will do. So I've known Michael for many years, dating back to the viral hepatitis days when Pegasus was first launched. That goes back more than 20 years ago. So him and I have had a very long relationship, both professionally and as a friendship. Now, as a physician, as I focus on hepatology, I've had the benefit of watching my patients progress over 20 years of practice with progressive liver disease, liver failure, liver cancer, and many of them needing liver transplant. But there's always that group of patients that don't get to have that opportunity of a liver transplant. And I end up having to manage them through the palliative care phase of their illnesses. And as we've seen over the decade, I mean, initially, as Mike alluded to, we did a lot of viral hepatitis management. And there's many other liver diseases that lead to cirrhosis and liver failure. But fatty liver disease is now one of the big players on the field that needs more attention. Mm-hmm. And I think my heart really goes out to these patients because we don't have any good pharmacotherapy, which means there isn't a pill that these patients can take to help their illnesses. So I've been trying to do a lot of advocacy work to make the community around us aware of what are the problems and what are the lifestyle issues that lead to people having fatty liver disease, because it's not something that should be ignored. It's a very common finding on ultrasounds that people might get for complaints of abdominal pain or lab tests are abnormal. But I find that when I see these patients in consultation, that nothing has been taught to them about what does fatty liver disease actually mean. So when I see them and get to counsel them, I get to at least address that this is a sign of underlying metabolic disease, and that if you take action now, that you might actually alter your health trajectory. And my goal is to empower our patients so that they feel that they can manage some of this illness that they have and reverse it, as Mike talked about his daughter, which is, I love those stories. So number one, address the importance of the condition, identify how they have a huge role in impacting their life or their health changes in a positive way, and prevent themselves from having progressive disease where they may develop liver failure, liver cancer, and need a transplant. So I think it's been the experience over 2 decades in dealing with my many lovely patients on how we can help them by aggressive counseling when there isn't a medical option at this time.
I'm so glad that you focused on that conversation and on what physicians can do now, because too often I hear, and Michael, I'm sure you hear as well, that doctors don't want to diagnose NASH because there's nothing you can do. And so you just painted a wonderful picture and a very different story of ways that physicians can communicate with their patients on things that they can do, things that there are in their toolbox to help their patients. Is that part of the work that the Fatty Liver Alliance is doing, reaching out to other physicians to let them know that there are ways that they can help their patients today?
I would say, I'll answer first and say absolutely. The primary care physician group is a really big target group, and so we're spending a lot of time. Dr. Joshi and I have done a few segments already on screening and nutrition and that type of thing. And so that's really, really important. Just to add to what you said, there are things that people can do now. We're hearing more recently, I know you've heard as well, about even a gastric balloon as an option.
Right.
It's more than just diet and exercise. And I think the biggest complaint that patients say is every time I go to my doctor, all they do is tell me to lose weight and exercise.
And if it was that easy, everybody would have done it already. I also think it's particularly pernicious that many patients with advanced fatty liver disease have muscle wasting, have sarcopenia. And so you're asking them to be more active when their muscles are wasting away and their ability to be active is impaired. And so I think, asking people to lose weight, it's not probably the first time they've tried to do that without really admitting how their bodies are now sort of set up to work against them and give them the tools, whether it's a nutritionist consult or a bariatric consult or or some of the diabetes medications to really help them sort of come back from a position where their overweight has now turned into the disease of obesity, perhaps. And it's more to it than just, moving more and eating some vegetables.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think patients are aware they need to lose weight. So telling them they need to lose weight, all that does is shame them. Right. And we don't want to do that. I tell them, if you lose weight, that's a side effect. I really want you to empty your liver of the fat. And this is how you do so. And if you do so and make these changes, guess what? You might actually lose some weight. And I think reframing it, as I've seen how I've changed how I approach my patients, I've seen how they have more success with how I try to bring it up with them.
We have been talking more and more across the community about the value of non-invasive diagnostics, and is one of those values being able to give a sort of a tighter feedback loop, including in some cases visuals back to patients to show them those changes in the liver, even if they maybe don't see changes on the outside, that there are changes happening on the inside. Is there a value of non-invasive diagnostics in that context?
Yeah, I think absolutely. So I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have this lovely liver chart
Yeah.
which goes through all the stages of fibrosis. But I make a lot of utilization out of FibroScan, and where it measures two objective measurements. One is the hepatic fibrosis, and the other is the grade of steatosis. So I will repeat that if patients are willing every 12 to 14 to 18 months, so that they can see their progression or stability, or sometimes what didn't work for them. So they can try this, but I'm struggling. So now let's see what my scan shows. So I think that objective finding helps, especially in those people whose liver enzymes are normal, in fact.
Right.
So if their liver enzymes are elevated, then that itself is a very good measure of their success.
So Michael, what are you hearing from the patients in your community, your patients across Canada, where I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C., and have an understanding of the needs, the demographics here in Washington, D.C., and then the mid-Atlantic area of the U.S., but what are patients telling you that they need? What are their pain points or things that they wish they could have in place from where you sit in Canada?
I would say, and I'll look to Dr. Joshi too, but I would say what's very common is even if people are informed and they go to their primary care physician and say, hey, I think I might be at risk. I'm overweight and I have other risk factors. I have sleep apnea and that kind of thing. They don't even get all the tests that they're supposed to get. And so that's another story. I can let Dr. refer to that too. Just even in the lab tests that are easily available in Canada, we have challenges. So part of it is helping them by informing the physicians so that they actually get assessed without asking when they go for the annuals, if it's appropriate. But especially if they're going in saying, I think I'm at risk, I need to be tested. And even then they're not getting tested. I wanted to sort of walk the walk, kind of thing. I just did a non-invasive testing, and Supriya knows about that. But it was with LiverFast, and so I'm not going to share the results now because I'm going to post it on our site. But I went through the whole thing, and in fact, I'm also going to have a FibroScan too, so I'll be able to speak firsthand to people to what that process is like. And so the lab test stuff is fairly easy. There are some things that you have to pay for yourself here, but usually healthcare is free. But I would say mostly it's about educating the physicians so that they ask the right questions, and educating patients so that they're not frustrated even when they know what they're asking for.
I think that's so important about lab work, and not only having it, but then the doctors having a comfort, looking at it, taking it seriously, looking at the results with the patient, and for diseases where the lab work may be normal, still saying, well, based on other risk factors, maybe another type of testing and imaging is something that we need to pursue. So, but starting with, at least getting the tests that you're eligible for, I think is really important. I'm a liver transplant recipient, and so I literally live and die on my lab work, and I probably don't go 2 weeks without some type of lab work, and that allows us to guide decisions and make tweaks to my diet or medications, and it really is essential. And what hurts, one of the things that hurts me so most is when I see a patient posting their lab results on Facebook for someone to interpret them, or their imaging test for the group to interpret for them. I think we need to do better by those patients and make sure that even if their physician is too busy or understaffed to explain things to them, that we have better resources in place that people can go to have those lab results and those imaging tests really explained in detail and put in context for people.
I had 10 biomarkers done. One of them revealed something, I won't tell you again, something and that actually is reversible that I had no idea I had. and so related to the metabolic issue. So I never ever would have known if I wouldn't have done a non-invasive test like that. So my whole life I didn't know how to request them.
Michael, you were such a tease. I mean, I can't believe you're not gonna like do any big reveal here on GLI Live. You may not get invited back. I don't know. No, no. But we'll make sure that people have the links to your webpage so that they can follow up and see, as they say, the rest of the story and get that big reveal. But I think that that's important. That you're right. We walk the walk. That we understand how these tests are used and done, and what it takes to prepare for them, and what the results look like, and how the reports look, how they're communicated. I think that's an important part of us, our work as advocates.
Supriya and I regularly talk about healthy eating between ourselves. We share tips on better foods, lower carb, lower sugar, fructose. And learn from each other as well. So it's not just with patients, or it's us too. We live it. So.
Right. I'm very proud of people who say that about carbs. I'm just gonna take the fifth on that issue.
Well, I would just say a lot of community awareness was necessary. In fact, in our own region, we're about to start like a whole public awareness on exactly this topic, on how to read a label, understanding sugar and carbohydrate consumption. And then the world changed with the pandemic. So all of our public health professionals are obviously still tied up. But I think this has to be bigger than just a patient and their doctor. I think this has to be community-based, just basic education. Nobody learns how to read a nutritional label in school.
Right.
How do you interpret what 16 grams of sugar is? Like, what does that actually mean?
Right. I think that's so important. The head of our NASH program here at GLI, Jeff McIntyre, serves on the Tufts, food and innovation group, because nutrition is so important. And I think really bringing it down to the community level and teaching people and showing people and shopping with people, as well as putting the right food policy and school lunch policies and all those different things around people is so important. What other things do you have going on? Tell us. I'm excited about what you're working on.
Well, I know for one, I do a lot of speaking and writing about sugar and diet and lifestyle, but I also have started something on hepatoma screening or liver cancer screening. And that's because liver cancer, even though it's one of the top, it's one of the top 10 in terms of cancer deaths in North America, it's not really on the radar.
Right.
And it's not like breast, prostate, colon cancer. But in terms of liver cancer, it's most common in people who already have well-established severe scarring of the liver, which we call cirrhosis. Right. But there's also other populations at increased risk of liver cancer, which includes people with hepatitis B, who may or may not need therapy, or may not even have any liver scarring at all. And the other big group that's moving into this space are people with fatty liver disease.
Right.
So what the studies are showing is that even without them establishing severe liver scarring or cirrhosis, they are still at risk of liver cancer. And so guidelines have not caught up yet. Nothing's changed, but we're seeing people come in with liver cancer more and more often. And the way the current recommendations are right now are that people should have an ultrasound of their liver every 6 months if they fall into these high risk groups. Right. So that means that they need to see their physician to get a requisition every 6 months. And that itself is costly and a drain on the system. So, and then there's people who just don't follow up or don't show up. So I'm trying to initiate a program with one of our large provincial radiology clinics to initiate self-referral of ultrasound of the liver every 6 months. So this is still in negotiation. So I can write up a requisition, ultrasound every 6 months for this program, and they will automatically keep booking the patient every 6 months, calling them, reminding them, booking them in. And I'm hoping that if we can even do a study on this, that within Ontario, at least our province where I'm working in, we can track, how many cancers are picked up and how many are not being lost to follow up. And because the thing that makes you that breaks your heart is when people are found to have a cancer and they just weren't part of the screening program.
Right.
Because they failed to follow up and get a test, or they got canceled, they didn't rebook it. So I'm hoping that this kind of service may help patients not fall through the hoops.
I except you're volunteering for the Liver Cancer Council screening work group. It's exactly the type of initiatives that we are supporting, and we have talked with some other health system innovation hubs to do some very similar work. So we'd love to share it with you and support your work in doing that, because I think that is so important. I remember talking to one academic medical center innovation director who we had started to work on a similar program, and she came back to me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard. They come from, hepatology, and some are in radiology, and some are over here in this, and some." And I was like, yes, yes, the paths to liver cancer are diverse, and so, but I'm like, I'm not even asking you to go out into the community and find extra patients who probably also need to be part of the screening. I'm just asking you to connect patients with diagnosed liver disease in your system and to get them into this, an email for a 6-month screening. But the fact that the liver cancer care is so fragmented and disconnected from the other parts of the health system is definitely a problem worth solving, I feel. Yeah. So, Michael, tell me what else the Fatty Liver Alliance has going on, and particularly if there's particular ways that you want to celebrate or mark International NASH Day, which is June 9th, the second Thursday in June, coming up very soon.
I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to start with actually IND 2022, we like to call that. We have a series, and it's very important to consider children, adolescents and children, and we don't talk about it very often. And so we have a series that we're going to highlight that week, because it's a few that we've done with pediatric hepatologist, an endocrinologist, a pediatric dietitian, nurse practitioner, and really give people some insights on kids, because one of the things we want to do at Fatty Liver Alliance is to try to intervene as early as possible. So early in a patient's life, but also early in their life itself. And if we can stop fatty liver disease really early when they're still children, it's something that would be beneficial. So that's already, we've taped a few of it, and we're going to save it for that week, which would be great. We also started, I told you the story this morning about, or just a few minutes ago, about my daughter, but we're also sharing some other patient journeys also. And so an example, like I gave today too, that a patient who went to the physician who wanted to be screened and never was, had to go somewhere else to get screened. A patient who inadvertently found out that they had fatty liver disease advanced, had no idea, but they knew a hepatologist, and they ended up getting a fiber scan, and so they found out. And then my story, as somebody who went looking for it, and that result too. So I think those stories are, as you said earlier, are really important to be able to share that. The Canadian Liver Meeting is coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to be attending, and we're going to be co-moderating sessions on NAFLD and NASH, which is great. And I was going to say the funniest one, Supriya, but we did an FLA on the road, and Supriya and I actually went into some fast food places and ordered some really crappy food that looked good. And we analyzed the labels and the nutritional clues to see how bad these actually were. And then we went into the supermarket and walked down the aisles I was filming her as she's going through, this is something you should eat. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, but
make her a star.
Yeah, it was a little weird filming through the store, but we did that.
I think that's so important. I think that's fantastic. And my husband is his expertise is in lipid metabolism, so he would absolutely endorse that scrutiny of all too commonly available foods and parts of people's diet, so that they understand the impact of those choices.
And food inequity is something that we talked about as well, because even though we have the best intentions that, green Mediterranean is the way to go, not everybody can do that. But so even for people who don't have the funds available, there's other options that we suggested.
Excellent. I want to see the supermarket footage. I'm gonna just sit on your website now and just now I know I'm gonna watch at night and catch up on all this wonderfulness. FLA on the road. I love that.
Yeah.
So I want to take a few minutes. Your pediatric NASH program is so important. And I think that one of the advantages of having the Liver Action Network is knowing which other organizations have a similar focus, so that you can share best practices and materials and know about each other. So I know, NASH Knowledge also feels very strongly about pediatric NASH and food education in the family. And so tell us a little bit about, what the being part of the Liver Action Network has meant, and what you want it to mean.
Sure. I was very quick to join when I had the opportunity. As you know, I don't think I've missed a meeting yet, and I love it. If I said I savor it, it's probably, maybe it's overkill a little, but I love every minute spending with my colleagues. They're very energetic and motivated, and we have the same endpoints in mind. And when we're doing social media posts and events, we're all supporting each other, and so that's definitely something that you can see. When we have our calls, I have asked the team before suggestions on, the best way to get through for screening programs, as you know, like Wayne has done. And I said, that's a great idea. I'm going to do something like that here. And working on that, and as you said, Tony and his team have done a lot of in-community events, even in the last couple of weeks, and I go out of my way to support them as well. Yeah. So it's a really collegial relationship, and actually it's just started. There's so much more that we can do. Hopefully we'll meet in person even one day.
Yeah.
That would be really virtual is okay, but in person I think we can do a lot more. Even sitting down for a day and synergizing would make a huge difference. But big fan of LAN.
I agree. Well, I'm going to write that down. Maybe we'll have a meeting at the liver meeting, a side event, so we can come together in person here in DC.
I want to add, I was very proud to be part of the work that I did with GLI, doing the obesity piece, where we put what's it called, the
TROA, or
a proclamation, where we put a proclamation together, and that's the biggest thing that we've done like that, and try to make an impact on a broader basis. So we represented Canada, and GLI was the US, and so that was a really nice thing to do.
It's a wonderful opportunity to show that there is effective collective liver advocacy, and that we can make a difference even on larger issues like diabetes policy or obesity policy, where there hadn't been any voice or connection to liver disease before. And I think in turn we now have a larger group of supporters from those communities to support our policies and our needs. And so it's been really exciting having all of the Liver Action Network members represented, and being able to work together in force.
We have a hill here too. So you guys are in Washington, so we have Ottawa, and I have to say, even without pharmacological support, because historically that type of advocacy comes when drugs are close, and they need the support approvals for patients, that kind of thing. But you at GLI have really led the way, even without that, pushing things forward. And I think in Canada we need to learn more. So the A3 course that you offer people is fantastic, and we need to do a little bit more in Canada like that.
Well, you can send as many people as you want. We're going to do it at hybrid this year, our A3 event in September. So I'm really looking forward to meeting people. Again, the connections between patients is just, it's moving. Dr. Joshi, what's on your wish list for advocacy from your medical lens, now that you have the entire Liver Action Network and Global Liver Institute at your disposal? What would you like to do?
Well, I think number one, given again the focus being on fatty liver disease, and people need to learn about lifestyle, nutrition, how to eat. That I think the biggest problem is that this should almost fall into the lap of a family physician or even a specialist. This should be education provided in childhood, in school, in college, university, and it should be there should be public education about this. Right. So my first wish is public awareness, understanding about marketing and how food products, sugary drinks are being marketed to young children, teens, young adults. I was interviewed for a segment by one of our national TV shows on exactly this, looking at sugar content in drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think public awareness is number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also just the awareness of what fatty liver disease means. It's very often ignored, and it's seen so commonly that people or physicians themselves will often think it's normal. Everyone has fatty liver disease, so it's not even brought up as a discussion point.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, if that person is not yet a type 2 diabetic or not yet hypertensive, if you address that fatty liver disease and give them that education on why it's developing, and to make people realize, connect those dots, it's all the same problem. And if you have an intervention at this earlier phase, that might prove to reverse a lot of those things and be preventative. And that in itself speaks to cost savings for the healthcare system, hopefully better or reduce morbidity and mortality for those patients who are involved. So I think public awareness, physician awareness, and education is the biggest part from groups like yours and like what Mike's doing, and anything we do to get the word out will help the global community.
Right. Well, we've made a step forward today with you all, so I thank you. And I think and I hope our Liver Health is Public Health campaign that recently launched and is a good complement to our work in NASH, like International NASH Day, will move at least some of those goals forward. But thank you so much for being here today and contributing to all of this important work.
Thank you so much for having us. This was fantastic.
Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. Join us weekly on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time for more episodes of GLI Live. Check out our website, globalliver.org, and follow us on social media to learn more about the Global Liver Institute and stay up to date with the latest in liver health. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay connected.